Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to the kickoff for the 2025-2026 Stock Talk webinar series with Manitoba Agriculture. My name is Kristen Bouchard-Teasdale. I'm a regional livestock specialist out of the Beausejour office, and I will be your co-host today, along with my colleague Cindy Jack, a regional livestock specialist out of Portage, and Benjamin Ham, a farm business management specialist. So today's Stock Talk agenda, we're going to be reviewing some programming updates briefly. And then Ben is going to deliver a presentation on the Manitoba cattle industry cost of production, an update for everybody. And then we're going to round out Stock Talk with a Q&A session that we titled Chewing the Cud. So the 2026 intake for the SCAP Livestock Predator Resistant Fence Construction Program is now open. Through this program, you are able to apply for funding to support the construction of fences that deters predators from entering calving and lambing areas, pastures, extended grazing areas, and deadstock compost sites. So what is new for 2026? The funding cap has been increased to $40,000. Funding is targeted to the higher standard fences needed on high-risk farms. So an apron is now required on all net wire fences to deter burrowing. Funding is provided for 9-wire and 11-wire electric fences, but 7-wire fences are no longer eligible. Livestock predation risk, assessments will be completed to better understand the risks on farms where fences are being built. This is a no pass or fail assessment, but it must be completed before you receive your fencing payment. So what stays the same in 2026? Farmers with a paid livestock predation claim in 2021 or later can apply. Note that you also need a premise identification number as well. It's the same application form, no quotes are needed. And the maximum payment per linear foot of fence is the same for all fences. The one exception is a 50 cent per foot increase for the 70-inch high net wire fences with an apron. MASC will be inspecting all fences post-construction to make sure that they meet standards prior to being compensated. Oh, and the application deadline is December 8, 2025, so we don't want to miss that. If you have any other questions, please feel free to send one of us an email or give us a call, and we'd be happy to review the program with you. New for this winter, the Livestock and Forage team will be conducting a winter feed and water survey. And so what we're doing is we're partnering with producers across the province in sending a basic forage test into central testing for complementary analysis of the trace mineral component of that test. So the producer would be responsible for covering the costs associated with a base feed test assessment, so like your 2FF or 1FF. And then Manitoba Agriculture will pay for the additional costs associated with measuring the trace minerals such as copper, zinc, iron, those minerals that we don't necessarily always look for or try to measure in our feed, but really it's a good idea to have a good handle on that as well. And to go along with the 2 forage tests, we'll also do a complementary water analysis of your primary winter water source with ALS. So it's, I think actually it's a pretty great little survey. And if you'd like to participate, please call the number that's on the screen. There are limited spots available in each region. I'm going to let Cindy take this one.
All right, so on December 11th, we have an animal health workshop happening at Stepler Farms from 10 to 3. You can join MBFI and Manitoba Agriculture, covering topics such as immunonutrition, setting calves up for success, and different vaccines and minerals, and along with a calving demonstration where we'll have a hands-on workshop where you can practice different calving dystocias and along with tubing a calf. And so for more information, you can contact the toll-free number at the bottom of the screen to register.
In January, Beef and Forage Days will be scheduled at three different locations, Ericsdale, Austin, and Roblin. The agenda is shaping up to be a very good one. So far, what we've got planned is the pasture forage and water quality results from 2024 and 2025. That'll be delivered by a regional livestock specialist from your area. A cattle market update and outlook for 2026 with Rick Wright. The Grazing Advantage, Building Productive and Resilient Forage Systems with Christine O'Reilly, a forage specialist with Ontario Ministry of Agriculture. And in Ericsdale, Beyond the Breeding Soundness Exam, Understanding Bull Subfertility in the Herd with Colin Palmer from the Western College of Veterinary Medicine. Um, Please note that pre-registration is required for the Ericsdale and Roblin locations. This is largely so that we know we have enough treats to have everybody well fed. And the Austin location is no need to pre-register. Cool. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass the slides over to Ben and he will deliver his presentation.
Thank you, Kristen. Thanks for the opportunity to meet with you guys here. I'm going to do an update on the Manitoba cost of production in the livestock sector here today. I'm going to talk about the cow-calf sector and backgrounding and what a year 2025 has been. If you're in the industry at all, you have maybe watched some of the pricing and they have been some extreme volatility in the market from some highs in September of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, $11 calves. So it's been a crazy year. So putting these budgets together are always a bit challenging, but this year was exceptionally hard just to come settle on a price. But we're going to start by talking a little bit about the industry first. This is some data from CanFax. They always have some great market info. So if you guys are ever looking for market info, take a look at them. But it's just telling us what the cow herd is doing across Canada. We are still steadily declining our herd. We're down to 367,000 beef cows here now in Manitoba. And we do see some slight indications that possibly that is trending in the opposite direction with some heifer retention. But again, we're going to need to see that those those heifers stay out of the slaughterhouse and get bred. So we'll see what happens here. But all indicators are pointing towards expansion, and with the levels of profitability we are seeing, we'll see what they do here in the future. But we are still trending downwards in the cow numbers, and we'll see what is going to happen here going forward. Just another chart here just to show that the number of cows has decreased, and it's slowing down, but it is still decreasing, and something we want to reverse to increase the number of animals out there on the landscape. So that's something that we'll be watching and keeping a very close eye on. So what I'm going to be going through today is the 2026 cost of production of beef cow calf. This one that I'm going to go through is based on a 300 cow herd. It's a corn silage ration. We do also have a 150 cow budget that's based on a hay ration. But again, these are designed to be calculators, not for me to tell you what your costs are, but for you to have a tool to help figure out what your own personal costs are as a producer. So all of the numbers I do talk about in the budget are designed to be tailored numbers. They're calculations inside of the Excel spreadsheet. So if you are going to use this, do the Excel spreadsheet because it is going to give you a lot better indication as to what your operation is doing if you use the Excel calculator. So if we look at the operating costs, we start off with feed costs. I know it gets boring, but feed costs are by far the largest operating expense that we do have as cow-calf producers. So here with this corn silage ration, we're sitting about $460 per cow on a winter feed. I'll go through it in a little more detail in a bit here, but that's just what their winter feed cost is for the cow. Other operating, this is a tough one. Absolutely, everyone's going to have a different value here. Everything from vet meds to breeding costs to marketing transportation. Everyone's located different distances from the market, death loss, everyone, manure removal. Everyone has a different amount of time cows are spending in confinement. So that value is going to be different for everyone. And all of these values are designed to be calculations for you to help figure out what your own personal costs are in all of these variables here. So total operating costs of 1266. And then we do have a fixed cost section, again, very independent of each producer. Everyone has a different set of buildings, machinery and equipment, different types of pasture land fencing. All of that is extremely different on each operation. So it's crucial producers go in and look at what my assumptions are in what some of these things are, because they are a bit light on, say, equipment, things like that. So do take a look to see if it's accurately capturing what your operation is doing. So total cost of production is $1,800. So it's the highest it's been ever. So we're seeing record costs. Luckily, this year we are seeing revenue at record levels as well. So that is good news. This is the profitability and break-even analysis at the back end of the budget. Extreme profitability that have been identified this year. We're looking at about $3,500 per cow, depending when you're pricing those calves, what weights they are. But the net profit is significant, $1,700 net profit, and equates to, depending on how many acres you have, the budget now allows you to compare it. If you put in your productive acres on the winter feed supply, productive acres in pasture, it now breaks it down on a per acre basis. So we can see that there's roughly about $350 an acre profit in these operations. So significant values there, and they have changed drastically this year. So something just to watch and keep an eye on. I'll mention a little bit later on, but with that profit comes extreme tax liability. So hopefully everyone's paying attention to that. But that is something that we will have to look at coming closer to year end. Break-even calculations. This budget also identifies where we need to be at for break-even. These prices need to be at $3-4 cows if we want to be profitable in this enterprise and pay ourselves. So we need 329 per hundredweight to see profitability in these operations. And luckily now we are, and hopefully that when it does settle back down, we'll still be above that cost of production benchmark to allow us to have profitable enterprise. The other thing that it does is does a cost summary per cow per day, and it's a bit unique. It'll be tailored to you if you update the budget. But we're looking at summer grazing anywhere from $1 to $1.21, yardage close to $2, total winter feed costs about $4 with that winter feed at $2, and we have some extended grazing costs too that I'll go over in a bit. Some costs just to remind us where we've been. We haven't always been in an industry that has had revenue greater than total production costs. And this chart explains that very clearly. This is data from AgriBenchmark. It's a cost of production network, again, done by Canfax. I'm the lead for the Manitoba group here, and it just identifies that over the years from 2020 to 2024, our revenue wasn't larger than what our total production costs. And that's the challenge of the industry. And maybe the reason why we aren't seeing a surge of producers coming back into the industry or expanding is because history has taught us that it's a tough gig. And not always will that revenue be there that's greater than the production cost. So pretty interesting slide that just goes through what the industry has been exposed to. Some of the analysis coming out of AgriBenchmark is very unique, and I do like some of these slides here. The total costs on the highly profitable operations, no surprise, they have the lowest total costs. But what is interesting, they also do have, some costs a little bit higher, and those are opportunity costs and things like that. But again, those highly profitable enterprises also have tied to the lowest feeding costs. So something that we can come out of the analysis here, and maybe something we can compare to our own operations by using some of this data to see how other producers are faring, and just taking a look at how you compare to other producers. So switching gears now, back to winter feed. This is one of my favorite slides inside of our budgets. It's the winter feed ration budget. And what it does is it goes through 8 different sets of rations. We have ration 1 to 8 here, just showing us which rations that we have identified in the yellow is the corn silage ration. So we're feeding barley straw, corn silage, and a little bit of protein supplement for a total cost per head per day of $1.81. So it's one of the cheapest rations here with identified feed costs that we have. Again, everyone can go in and update the prices, and from there, this thing will auto calculate what your own personal feed rations are for all these different rations. So it is a bit unique, and it quickly changes what your cost on a per head per day basis is on your own specific winter feeding program, if you can go in and update that cost. A little bit of more data coming out of that Agro Benchmark survey group. What I did find interesting, and this slide explains it very well, is that you can be a high cost and a low cost producer in any type of winter feeding regime. So you can be feeding hay, you can feeding annual silage, anything. Comparing to other producers, it's just identifying which is the high cost and low cost producer. So it is unique, and it does allow you again just to see what other producers are doing, feeding the same winter feeding products as you are, and how are they getting their costs lower. So it gives you a bit of ideas to help manage some of your winter feeding programming out there. And the next one I want to talk about is extended grazing. So the only way to reduce your winter feed costs is by getting those cows out there grazing that forage and getting the feed into them themselves. So extended grazing is a good way to minimize our total winter feeding costs. So here I've got a budget for extended grazing. It's inside of our cost of production. And I've identified corn grazing, stockpiled forage, swath grazing, and some crop residue grazing. So it calculates those costs. And if you look right down the bottom, it's significantly lower than our $2 and our $4 after being fed, including yardage. So you can significantly reduce your winter feeding costs by taking any of these strategies into your operation and getting those cows feeding themselves versus you going out there mechanically feeding them all the time. Just to stretch it a little bit further, we've had a lot of producers look into corn grazing, but there's also some, they're doing a bit of a hybrid, and they're doing this silage. They put up corn silage, and then they're strip grazing the pile. So I thought that was unique, and I put a bit of a budget together for that. And it's showing that you can get as efficient or more efficient than corn grazing. So you have 18-ton corn, for example, on the bottom right-hand side. You can get as low as $1.10 per head per day, whereas corn grazing is about $1.14 per head per day. So similar in cost per head per day, but the high yielding corn with supplementation of straw, we can reduce our acres, or efficiency per acre goes significantly higher by feeding corn silage that's harvested all of the corn in the field and then supplementing that corn silage with some lower feed ingredients, because that corn silage now is such hot feed that you have to supplement, and it can be up to 50% supplementation times because the energy is so high. So it's a bit of protein you have to deal with in that regime, but it definitely does reduce the acres. You're a lot more efficient per acre, and our costs are still there at about $1.10 per head per day. So something to look at. These are just some images here of an operation that's utilizing that strategy. It is unique, and it's just a corn silage stripped off with electric wire and moved as needed. It's just another image just showing what it looks like. Another output that these budgets can do, we are getting the question all the time now, especially when the prices are so high, what can you profitably pay for cows? And this is a chart that is automatically spit out in the budget, and it can be tailored to your own operation, but it is unique, and it tells you how much you can pay for cows that are allowing you to have 100% financed as low as 25% financed. And, if you're financing all the cows, you probably shouldn't be paying more than $3,200. But if you're only financing 25%, it's extreme what you can pay for these cows with these profitable levels. And this is putting it back down to 450 heifers and 450 steers and $4 heifers. So if we put in $6 steers, we could say that we could probably pay 10, 12,000. Again, that's a bit extreme. We don't know that this profitability is going to be there for the next 5, 10 years to pay off this financing. So that's you do have to take with a bit of grain of salt, but it just identifies with today's market what you can potentially pay for those animals and have that operation pay for the retention of those animals in the herd. Year-end and tax planning, feed and financial planning go hand in hand. This is one of the things that I want producers to really spend some time on. Talk to your accountant before you end. Don't wait until spring. We do have some time now that you can mitigate some of those tax liabilities. It can be huge. Talk to your accountant, do some smart planning. It can keep some of those dollars into your pocket or the operation instead of paying taxes. It can be significant, and I'll go through a bit of a scenario here. This is based on a 150 cow calf operation with today's profitability, looking at 660 weight steers and 620 heifers. Again, our revenue is about $3,500 per cow, a significant amount of net profit there. So what does that mean for tax liability side? It's showing a potential, if there is no planning, of $108,000 in taxes payable, something that cow-calf producers have not been exposed to. The profitability levels just haven't been there in the past. This is identifying it, and it's just showing you some of the different things you can do. If our equipment rates aren't allowing you to depreciate at a 100% rate like they have in the past, buying equipment isn't necessarily going to solve your problems. So talk to your accountant and see which solution you want to look at, because $108,000 tax bill is going to be significant for a producer. So just do keep that in mind. And I'll quickly go through backgrounding as well. And this is one of the tougher ones that we put together. Again, it's so sensitive to the price going in and price going out. So what this budget is doing, it's raising a calf from 500 to 900 pounds. It's got a couple different rations in there. I've got silage, hay ration, barley silage ration. It's just calculating some of the costs that are required to get these calves fed. So here we have a total feed cost of $265 per head. It's just identifying, again, in this ration, it's about 2.5 pound a day gain. It's telling you all the incremental amounts of feed that have to be fed and the costs in each different weight category. So a bit unique that way, and just identifying and expanding a little bit more on what these animals are eating and the cost of it. Feeder costs and all of the other operating costs are significantly different for, let's say, cow-calf people that keep back their animals. They aren't physically paying themselves, but it's the amount that they are giving up by keeping those calves and feeding it that we have to keep in mind. But having said that, there are operations out there that are buying these animals in that physically do have that cost. So total operating costs, and this has just been significantly greater this year than ever, but we're looking at total operating costs close to $4,000. Fixed costs, again, it's going to be so different depending who and what you are. If you're specifically backgrounding, it's going to be a completely different cost structure than if you're a cow-calf producer that already has the facilities that are paid by the cows. You can get a lot cheaper facilities that way. But again, it just identifies what equipment and buildings are being used here for this operation. So for, buying in 680 steers, selling out a potential 455 steers, it was tough to show profit, and I was quite frustrated and disappointed to show that. But things have drastically changed in the last little while here. If we go to $6 steers and have our output at 455, we are now all of a sudden making $300 to $400 per animal. So it is significant. If we can lock in the profitability in these operations to get $300-400 by locking in a contract with LPI, it's definitely worth looking at. These markets can move so fast, and we saw this $6 to $680 within 4 to 5 weeks. So that's how extreme it is. Do look at protecting your risk. That's one thing I would say about the backgrounding side. Same with the cow-calf side. In February coming up, just due to the volatility, the extreme high prices we are, I would recommend anyone looking at February 1st policy on LPI calf coming up here in February. And this chart here explains it to me. It is so volatile. We have so much downside risk If we can protect that in any way possible, I would encourage everyone to look at those options. We're looking at settlements here of 615, and we were at 680 just 4 or 5 weeks ago. So some of the tools that we do have available here, I just took a quick snapshot of what's available here on the livestock section. These are the farm management tools. So we have our cow-calf, our 300 or 150, our backgrounder, replacement heifer costs calculations. A lot of the times we're asking now, what is the cost of keeping that heifer and having her bred now with these prices we see today? It's quite expensive, but so is the cost of buying a bred heifer if anyone has looked at those prices right now. So it just does help make that decision. Should I keep back my heifers or should I buy bred heifers? Grassing costs, feed plan. If you're looking at any type of ration development, feed plan is an awesome little tool to help figure out what is the lowest cost of energy, protein, or dry matter. That's an awesome little tool to help you. So take a look at the tools. They're definitely designed for producers to look at increasing farm management skills and making informed farm management decisions on the farm. So just to wind things down here, manage risk, protect profitability, take out the risk with risk management programs, look at those. Now is the time to get some of that profitability locked in. Look at all of agri insurance. There's forage and pasture available. Livestock price insurance, Agri Invest. It's a free program, yet I'm still finding producers not in it. I'm just blown away at how and why I'm still finding that. But Agri Stability is one of my favorite programs, and hopefully I'll be talking about that one next time I get a chance to chat with you. Do look at Agri Stability, understand how it works, and once you understand that, you'll understand how crucial that program is to protect long-term sustainability in the operations. And livestock cash advance, it's a free operating loan. If you can get that working for you, I would look at that. So just another reminder, take a serious look at them. Do look at all the programs, taxes, talk to your accountants. I can't stress that enough. There's so much tax liability out there in these operations that aren't properly prepared. We'll be surprised if we don't do something proactively. So plan ahead. And with that, I'll leave my contact info here for a little bit. I'd be happy to entertain any questions if there are, but I've talked enough and open it up for a few questions if there is.
Ben, would you be able to touch on the tax planning handout that you have available on our website?
Yeah, for sure. It's available on our website now, and it's just a little tool to help identify and help calculate what some of the taxes payable are on your operations. And it's a one-pager Excel template to be used by individual producers to put their own scenarios in and to show what the impact of, say, buying a $200,000 tractor is. If we don't have that 100% CCA rate this year, we aren't getting that $200,000 tax deduction this year. And again, talk to your accountant to make sure that you're informed of those major purchases. You may still make some of those large purchases and still have a large tax bill. So take a look, and it's designed just to help identify what the impact of buying some equipment is, and hopefully identify some strategies to keep the profitability inside of your operation working for you versus the opposite.
Thank you.
Got one for you if there are no other questions. You update the COPs yearly, and the costs that you use reflect costs that producers typically see in their operations. The manure management costs you have, they seem a little bit low to me, and I was just curious, how did you arrive at those?
Yeah, again, we have to be careful about looking at any of my costs, to be honest with you, because they're based on a very specific set of assumptions. So that manure removal cost inside of this operation is reflecting that these animals are only in confinement for 60 days for calving. So we do have to keep that in mind, and I do have the manure stockpiled and have some shrinkage factor in there. So if you aren't doing those things, if you're feeding year round, absolutely, a manure remover bill is going to be way lower than it should. If you're feeding in confinement for 200 days it could be 4 or 5 times that if you were taking it all out in spring and not stockpiling it and have that reduction in physical size, it definitely would be a different value. So just because it's there and I say it's there, make sure you understand what it's reflecting. That's one of the biggest things with any one of those line items. It's not a cost because I say it's a cost. It's a cost based on a very specific set of assumptions.
Thank you.
If anyone has questions for Ben, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen where you can type the questions in.
Don't be shy. Ask him some hard ones.
Mhm.
I've got one more for you. Um, how does a person adjust your budgets to reflect calving at different times of the year? So I guess what I'm curious, what time of year do you have your cows calving here specifically, or what assumptions do you make there? And is it difficult for me to adjust the COPs to reflect calving, say in January, if or even in the fall, perhaps?
Yeah, that's not an easy question to answer, but it doesn't really, the budget itself doesn't care when you calve. It doesn't ask that question physically. So what's going to dictate that is the infrastructure. So if you're calving in January, most likely you have a lot more infrastructure than what my budget reflects. So you have to update that. So those are the things you're going to really have to pay attention to. What is the infrastructure and the equipment costs? And what is your labor? Because you could be calving in May and have very little infrastructure costs and very little time spent. So I might be off on the time and infrastructure in my budget because you have the opposite. You have too little on your own operation of time and infrastructure. Whereas again, if you're purebred and maybe calving in January, you have a lot more facility costs and a lot more time moving those animals in and out of those barns. So that's what's going to capture those different types of enterprises. It's the time, the equipment, and the infrastructure that's related to them, not necessarily the specific calving date in itself, as well as the output, which is your weaning weight, right? So if you're calving in May and selling them in October, you're going to have a lot lighter calves. Or if
Mhm.
you're backgrounding them, then you just have to make that assumption in two separate budgets because it's always nice to see what the cow is doing as well as what your feeding program of those backgrounders is doing.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ben? Okay, if not, I think I'm going to try to share my screen again, hopefully successfully. Um, and all right, is it up as I would like it to be?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. This is my first time, so it's here we go. All right, so we're trying something a little bit different for this webinar series. We've added a new section called Chewing the Cud, a livestock and forage Q&A. And this is to hopefully allow us to be more interactive with the folks at home who are participating in the webinar. And so what we'd love is if you have any questions relating to any aspect of beef cattle production, now's the time to ask. We can't guarantee that we are going to know the answer, but we will do our very best. And if we aren't able to answer you, we will be sure to take that question away and answer it at a later time. If you happen to have any questions, if not, we thought this might happen. So we've come prepared. We have a few different subjects that we thought we put up on the board and see if maybe reading any of those bubbles uh, would remind somebody of a question that perhaps they did have. Any yet? I can't see, unfortunately, on my screen. It doesn't allow me to see questions. None?
Okay, so,
Okay.
if you have a question, you can just pop it in the Q&A box.
Yeah. So it looks like we're just going to have to pick one
Yeah.
and talk a little bit about it. Um, why don't I go to the first slide? And at any time, please feel free, pop your question in the box and interrupt us, and we will make sure that we take a look at it. Okay, so we thought we'd bring up nutritional requirements. It's that time of year where everybody's, pretty much, or I hope all the feed is harvested. It's been brought home. We have it in our hay yards. Our inventories are there. And it's time to start thinking about how we're going to be using them, how we'll be feeding that out. And in order to do that, we want to match those feeds to where our animals are at in terms of their nutritional requirements. So the Beef Cattle Research Council has done a really great job of putting together different infographics that help us visualize where our animals may be at a particular time during the year in terms of their nutritional requirements. And right now, I think the majority of our animals are entering that phase 3 or mid-gestation. And this is immediately after our calves are weaned. And we find our cows having their lowest nutritional requirement at this point, and that is largely because we're ending lactation. So our energy and our protein requirements drop by up to 35% when we compare them to her peak nutritional demands. Our fetal growth at this time is fairly slow, and voluntary feed intake at this period is also at its lowest. And it's just because, she just doesn't require as much to keep her going. So this is the best time of year for us to be able to put some weight back on our cows if we find they're coming off pasture in poorer condition than we would like. And this could be associated with the fact that some regions throughout the province were experiencing some extremes of moisture, right? It was a little bit drier than we wanted it to be, uh, for example, in the Interlake. And so, this is a great opportunity to be able to feed our girls and put a little bit of weight back on them. A common rule of thumb when we're looking at energy and protein requirements throughout the year, we just memorize that energy requirement is 55, 60, 65. So when she's in pregnancy, pardon me, she's requiring 55% TDN. Late pregnancy, we boost up a little bit to 60, and after calving, she's at 65. So we really want to focus on what we're feeding them when we move into that phase 4 and phase 1, that late gestation. There's a lot of fetal growth happening at this time, and so we're wanting to be able to accommodate that nutritionally. So the fetus can actually gain up to 60 pounds in this stage alone, and the placenta is growing as well. But because of that too, because we see that extra growth, we have to also remind ourselves that her intake may be limited, and this is just because she has physically less space. And so we're going to really want to make sure that the feeds that we're delivering are able to provide that energy as well as the protein. So in late pregnancy, she requires 9%, and after calving, 11 to 12. Is there anything that I'm missing here, Cindy? Do we get any questions maybe pertaining to this?
We do have a question, and maybe Ben can help us with this one.
Yeah.
So what is the cost to have a 2-month-old calf on the LPI now until sale in August 2026?
Oh, sorry, I don't have those numbers at the tip of my fingertips. Um, I'd have to get back to if that person wants to email me directly. I can look at the premium table and we can chat about it. There's a few things going on there. Because when you're buying a policy, you're buying pounds of expected sale date. It doesn't really say that it's 2 months when you buy the policy. It's saying that you have a calf that's going to be sold at 650, 750 to 850, whatever the target weight is there. So a few things there. I can chat with this person if they want to contact me directly.
Okay, thanks so much.
You bet.
Okay. Um, shall we try another topic?
Sure. Maybe we can do feed testing as it kind of coincides with nutritional requirements.
That's so.
All right. So as Kristen mentioned, your cows will go through different phases of the cycle where they require higher nutrients. So it's important to test your forage so you can match that phase with the feed that you're feeding. And BCRC also has a lot of good information on sampling feed. And there are probes available in the MASC and Manitoba Agriculture offices that you can borrow. So sampling recommendations for dry baled forage. You want to use a forage probe for sample collection. Obtain cores from 20 bales for each sample that you wish to submit. Sample square and round bales 12 to 15 inches deep, and round bales should be sampled from the rounded sides, and square bales should be sampled from the end. It's important to combine sample cores, mix and seal in a clean plastic bag, and store them in a cool, dry location until you ship them. So the same general principles for collecting dry forages samples apply for collecting silage samples. There are different recommendations for sampling silage depending on the type of storage system. So if the silage pit or bunker is open, one can collect just a hand sample from across the face of the pile. If the bunker or bag has not yet been opened, a forage probe can be used to collect samples along the top or the sides. And just a reminder to reseal any areas that have been cut open to prevent any spoilage. And then wait a minimum of 4 weeks after you ensile before you sample. Feed testing is critical, but beef cattle can also obtain nutrients from water. Producers must consider regularly sampling stock water to prevent nutritional problems. In many cases, forage alone or water alone may not cause toxicities. However, when the two are combined, the cumulative effects may lead to problems. So this may be particularly true for sulfates or nitrates, and it can occur in either grazing or winter feeding situations. And when you do get your test results back, it's important to read them on the dry matter basis. So that's the column on the right hand. And you can consult any of your forage or livestock extension specialists for help with reading your tests or creating rations once you do get the results back. Is there anything you wanted to add, Kristen?
I think here is just a reminder again about the forage and water survey that we're doing. So it's actually, I think, quite useful in that the province will cover the cost to analyze those trace nutrients, which are we're seeing more and more important, or are more and more important to evaluate in tandem with the water samples. So also the complete costs of the water sample are covered. And I think, in looking at it, we've had a few folks be surprised at some of the sulfate levels in the water or the iron levels or even looking at the forage and seeing that zinc can be low as well as copper. And so in knowing that, we're able to make some recommendations as to how those requirements can be met with a mineral program, or if the cattle are receiving the mineral, how that can be tweaked to better meet their needs. So just keep that in mind. If you plan on sending some samples in, give one of us a call, and we can add that analysis tack that on to your test. You have any questions? No? Okay,
No, seeing any yet. Yeah.
shall we go on to the next slide? Here, my computer doesn't want me to move along. think maybe keeping in line with the uh, testing the feed and looking at the nutritional requirements. Another thing to consider this year, or this fall rather, is body condition scoring. So it's a low cost, hands-on method to determine the condition that your cattle are in. This hands-on method it's much more accurate than just looking at the animals. I think it's really easy to be deceived, especially when they're animals that we look at on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes we don't necessarily notice that change in condition. And for the most part, I would say a lot of our animals in Manitoba tend to be over-conditioned, right? So we love them a lot, and we're probably overfeeding in many cases. But there is the odd time where we find that those animals are under-conditioned, and right now is a great time to be able to separate them from the main herd and to be able to build on that body condition score. So how do you assess body condition score? Well, you feel for fat with your hands at the short ribs, the spine, the hooks and pins, and on either side of the tail head. So any animal that is in ideal shape will have a thin layer of fat in these areas, and you'll have to apply a bit of pressure in order to, I'm talking with my hands and I don't realize that they're not being shown here, but you'll have to apply a bit of pressure in order to feel the bones in this area. Under-conditioned animals' bones will be very prominent, and in an obese animal, you're not going to be able to feel the individual bones through the thick layer of fat. So cows with an ideal body condition score, that's falling within that 2.5 to 3 range, 3 being great. These girls tend to rebreed up to 30 days sooner than thin cows, which allow more cows to calve in the first 21-day cycle. And this can add up to 42 pounds of calf weaning weight since the calves are born earlier in the calving season and they will be heavier at weaning time. Cows in ideal body condition will also have pregnancy rates that are double of those cows in poor condition. They'll have improved milk production, fewer cases of abortion and stillbirth, healthier calves, and they will have fewer instances of calving problems. So again, this is one of the best times of year to assess our animals for a body condition, particularly when you're running the girls through to be pregnancy checked. It's a great time to do it. And if you have the vet doing that for you, they don't see the ladies on an everyday basis. And so they're able to give you a more objective opinion of what condition they're in. Any questions? Okay, so maybe
We don't.
oh,
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
We don't have a question, but a comment from Ray Bittner.
Okay.
LPI policies max out at 36 weeks, which is good. However, it might not cover all scenarios. So, thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Ray. Okay, how about we've done feed and water testing, mold and mycotoxins?
Great. So, um, another thing that you should consider testing for is mold and mycotoxins, which you can add it on to your feed test. So mold or musty feed won't always contain mycotoxins, but the only way is to be sure is to have it tested. The cost of adding it onto your feed test is a lot cheaper than losing cattle from the potential mycotoxins. So exposure to mycotoxins can have a wide variety of effects on cattle health and performance, ranging from mild to moderate to severe. The effects of mycotoxins are accumulative over time, and the presence of more than one mycotoxin may increase these effects. Chronic effects are often more noted than acute sudden ones. They can result in lower feed intake, gastrointestinal irritation, comprised nutrition, lower weight gains, and even weight loss. They can lead to gut health and respiratory problems, including secondary infections, as well as reproductive issues. They can also cause immune suppression, making animals more vulnerable to other threats and reducing the effectiveness of antibiotics. They can also reduce animal fertility, lead to weak calves, and at high concentrations can lead to abortion in pregnant cows and major health deterioration of animals, even including death. Ergot in particular can cause vasoconstriction, which leads in less blood to the extremities and can cause ears, tails, or feet to fall off. Ergot is particularly damaging to reproductive function as it blocks release of the hormone prolactin, which is needed to maintain pregnancy as well as milk production. For bulls, ergot contaminated feed can reduce sperm production, although overall reproductive effects are not quite as severe as for cows. So it's important to wear a mask and glove when you're collecting samples. And when sampling from stored feed, use a probe to take subsamples from multiple locations throughout the lot, reaching the depth, width, and length of the feed package. If you're unloading grain, a total mixed ration or a supplement that flows, take multiple samples across the entire cross section of the moving stream. The minimum sample size that's required for toxin analysis is 200 grams, with a maximum of 1 kg. A combined sample that is too large should be well mixed and a representative subsample about 1 kg taken for submission. Package the feed samples in large, clean, airtight plastic bags like Ziploc freezer bags. Mold growth may occur in wet samples and may continue to produce mycotoxins after collection. Generally, samples that have no more than 13% moisture store well. Freeze wet samples like your silage, hay, or wet grains before sending them. So if you had any issues with putting up your feed and it's maybe in a bit poorer quality than normal, it's important to test for mold or mycotoxins and even nitrates, as this year some areas experience drought or early frost, which can cause the plants to uptake nitrates, which is maybe what we can talk about next, Kristen.
Yeah. So our next topic, I guess just to mention a couple of different labs that are available to do the mold and mycotoxin testing. One is the Prairie Diagnostic Services Lab in Saskatchewan, and the other would be the University of Guelph Animal Health Laboratory in Ontario. So we have a couple of options. And just as Cindy had mentioned, in samples that are more moist, it's possible that the mold will continue to grow and produce mycotoxins en route. So be sure to get those to those labs in using a way that is most direct and is going to take the least amount of time, so a courier service. And also, consider the time of week that you're sending it. So just ensure, if you're sending it maybe on a Monday or Tuesday would be better so that it gets there and the lab is able to either freeze it or process it so that the the results are the most accurate. So yeah, like Cindy mentioned, we're definitely seeing some elevated nitrate levels in feed samples this year. And so what normally happens when growing conditions are favorable, plants take up nitrogen, largely in the form of nitrate, and that nitrate is rapidly converted into ammonia, and then it is incorporated into plant protein. But when normal growth conditions are interrupted, and that can be for a variety of different reasons. For example, photosynthesis isn't able to take place because the plant is located in the shade, because we're experiencing drought or frost, hail, low temperatures, herbicides, nitrogen fertilization, and disease. Anything that really affects normal plant growth will disrupt the ability of those nitrates to be converted into ammonia. And so then, if that feed has been harvested in that state or at that time when nitrate levels are high, they will tend to stay high, with the exception of ensiling. That will sometimes knock back your nitrates. I think it can be between 20 and 30%. Still, though, absolutely, please do test that feed. Also, feed that's been lying in the swath and has just continually been rained on. Quality is going to be a problem for sure there, but it's possible that some of your nitrates leached out. But still, please test your feed for nitrates, even if that is the case. Um, so our cattle then are exposed or consume this feed that is potentially high in nitrates. And under normal conditions, or if there's a bit of nitrate presence, what happens is that nitrate is converted to nitrite in the rumen and then into ammonia, where rumen microbes then are able to convert it into protein. But if there's too much nitrate turning into nitrite, that nitrite will then be absorbed into the bloodstream. It'll bind to hemoglobin, and what it does is it reduces the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. And so what happens is your cattle largely, if the nitrate poisoning is high enough, they will potentially die due to asphyxiation. Um, it's also possible that if the cow is quite heavily pregnant or pregnant, that deprivation of oxygen to the fetus can result in abortion. So neither of these are great things. We definitely don't want it to be happening. And so we want to certainly test our feeds for nitrates. Some of those crops that more commonly accumulate nitrates are oats, barley, wheat, canola, corn, flax, rye, pearl and German millet, sorghums, and Sudan grasses. But we also have to keep an eye out for weeds. So, if it's a newly seeded hayfield perhaps, and the weeds have gotten ahead of you, oftentimes pigweed can be a huge problem, thistle, and these are weeds that tend to accumulate nitrates as well. So do watch out for the proportion of pigweed, thistle, millet, mustards, kochia, lamb's quarters, Russian thistle, bull thistle, all the thistles, and white ragweed. This isn't to say that if you do send your feed away and you have a high nitrate test, that we can't manage that. We absolutely can. And so if you have anything that reports back as 0.5% nitrate, that first horizontal row there. I guess I should backstep. Different labs will report nitrate in different ways. And so you definitely want to be cognizant of the way that the lab is reporting the nitrate. We always want to look at it on a dry matter basis. And the form that we most commonly see is in that first horizontal row, the NO3 nitrate percent. And so I'm going to speak largely in those terms. If we have a nitrate test of 0.5% on a dry matter basis or less, that feed is generally considered safe for all classes of livestock. As we move higher into that 0.5 to 1, we're definitely going to want to be exercising caution and blending that feed off with feeds that do not contain nitrates. Anything above a 1, really, we have to think about that, and we have to be very cautious when we're mixing those feeds. And we certainly, really want to prevent or avoid feeding them to pregnant animals for sure. Um, so if we do get a high nitrate test, what we do want to do is we want to blend that nitrate off or that feed off to be at a safe level. So combine it with a clean feed so that the overall level of nitrate present for the animals is 0.5 or less. And that's fairly easily accomplished in feedlot rations or when a TMR is being delivered. Because when I say blend the feed, physically that feed needs to be combined and blended with a low nitrate feed. By taking, two bales and setting them out in the rings, one being high nitrate and one being low nitrate, it's not a safe practice because we can't guarantee that, one particular cow is going to take 50% of her ration or, the right proportion from each bale. She may only consume feed from that high nitrate bale, and so we can't guarantee her health. If you're not able to physically blend a high nitrate feed with a low nitrate feed, what we definitely want to do is we want to make sure that the first feed or what we're putting out first for the cattle is low nitrate or no nitrate feed so that they're filling up on that first. And then, if you have to go behind and shred out that bale of high nitrate feed, at least they're consuming less of it. And the thing with high nitrate feeds is we want to adapt those animals to that feed slowly. So we want to gradually incorporate it over a 2-week period, and we want to make sure that it is consistently being fed. So they gradually adapt, the rumen microbes gradually adapt to high nitrate levels. But if we take it away, we have to remember that those animals then, or those microbes have to readapt all over again. And so um, we want to make sure that it's being fed at low levels or safe levels continuously, allowing that animal to adapt. Um, Energy from grain can help with converting the nitrate in the rumen to ammonia. It's also helpful to ensure that vitamins A and E are balanced in the ration as well as your trace minerals. Okay, am I missing anything? Went off on a bit of a tangent there.
Yeah. And ensiling forages will help reduce nitrates as well.
Great.
But I think we are at our time.
We're at time. Perfect. So your next Stock Talk webinar will be on December 11th, where Ben's going to be back and he'll be speaking about agri-stability in action, discover the key to understanding the program. And we're going to do another Chewing the Cud forage and livestock Q&A. So this gives you a whole month to come up with some questions. Hopefully, not super difficult ones because I think Cindy is going to be at the animal health workshop that day. And so um, I'm I think I'm going to be the one fielding them. So try to take it easy on me. And oops, and I think that's all we have for you.
Yes,
If you have
so
any
thank you for coming on to our first Stock Talk of the year, and we hope to see you next month.